I was desperate to find out how I could prevent my own recurrence. No one is exempt from this disease, and breast cancer is officially now reached epidemic proportions. I'm hopeful that I have 3 beautiful granddaughters, and I'm hoping that what I'm doing will make a difference so that they never have to hear those awful words that I heard. You have breast cancer.
Welcome, everyone, and nice to see you all for a new edition of the On the Cancer Diagnosis interview series. Today is my pleasure to present you Judy Fitzgerald, cancer survivor and the writer, in short. Dear Judy, thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And for sure, it will be a very interesting discussions in the next half of hour with regard to breast and ovarian cancer, and especially what these 2 types of cancer can teach us. But to begin with the interview, I would like briefly to introduce yourself for our audience, because you have such a life story to share it, and we are eager to hear it.
Well, thank you. So at the end of in 2009, I was diagnosed with bilateral breast cancer and pretty much spent that whole year in treatment, surgeries, etc. And I had just retired from teaching. And so I used to always tell my students, if you want to know something, you need to do some research on it and see how you can move forward. And I was desperate to find out how I could prevent my own recurrence. And in the process of doing that, I actually met a doctor at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, Dr. Vincent Tuohy, and he had presented his breast cancer vaccine idea to Congress. But sadly, it wasn't funded. And so I actually reached out to Dr. Tuohy and said, why is this not getting funding? At the time, in 2010, the idea of primary prevention, which means the disease never happens, was pretty much unthought of. And so Dr. Tuohy was a pioneer in this area. And matter of fact, back then, there was really not much focus on immunotherapy. The pretty standard treatment for cancer was surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. And so his idea was very novel. So it took us until we lobbied Congress. We did Googling. I built a website. I spoke to anyone who would listen. And finally, in 2019, we did get a grant from the federal government, a $6 million grant, to do the phase 1 trial of the vaccine. And that trial now, we've inoculated 28 women, and the trial will be concluding the end of this year. So basically how the vaccine works is it's pretty basic, really, but so basic that no one had thought of it. There's a protein that women need when they are nursing a child, when they're lactating. It's a protein called alpha-lactalbumin. And this protein should not be present if the person is not having a baby. And so what happens, we think from the environment, from the estrogen, the xenoestrogens in our food and in our environment, that somehow these proteins start to be produced again, and the breast doesn't know what to do, and so it starts dividing, thinking that it needs to make milk when there is no milk. And so basically his vaccine was to target the protein alpha-lactalbumin and to deliver it in a vaccine to women. And the short summary of the trial to date is that 75% of the women have had a positive response. Now, I guess I should back up a minute because the big challenge is how do you prove primary prevention, meaning the disease never starts. So what Dr. Tuohy discovered in the process of searching for funding was that, in particular, triple-negative breast cancer cells that he was using in the lab were especially sensitive to the vaccine. And the idea then came, well, what if we inoculate these women when they finish treatment and have no evidence of disease, and then follow them? Now, what we did is we actually enrolled women that had a very high chance of recurrence. Triple-negative breast cancer has an 85% chance of recurrence within the first 5 years, particularly those that are aggressive forms of the cancer. So these are the women that we've been inoculating with the vaccine. The results have been that 75% of these women have had a strong immune response and today are cancer-free. We did have 4 women that did not respond, and actually, sadly, we lost 2 of our patients from the trial. Moving forward to phase 2, what we are looking for is why. Why did those 4 women not respond? And we have several things that we're working on. One of them is a genetic mutation, but 75% is pretty good percentage when you consider that these women probably would not still be alive at this point. So that's how I got here. And being a retired teacher, I basically decided to educate women or anyone who wants to avoid cancer by producing a website with lifestyle strategies to prevent cancer. So I have a whole website with all these tips.
The Sisters for Prevention.
Yes, sistersforprevention.com. And I also wrote a book. The year I was in treatment, I kept a journal. And the only reason I did publish the book was I was trying to raise money for the vaccine. But the book is called A Teacher's Journey, What Breast Cancer Taught Me. And that is available on Amazon. So that's basically my story since 2010. So I've been doing this for 15 years, pretty much.
You mentioned the brief history, let's say, of breast cancer challenges from the start, the basic start, yes, on primary prevention to what is now happening. But there are still a lot of women that are not doing screening. For example, in Eastern Europe, there were massive campaigns, free of charge, no fees, for women to do screening for breast cancer, but no one went. Why do you think, both as a teacher, as an advocate, as a former patient, why do you think this is happening? Because we are talking about new technologies like vaccines, but in the same time we have this part of women that don't want to go because of fear, because of worry. What could be an answer?
Well, I lived in England for 4 years, and during those 4 years, I did not have any screening. And when I came back to the States, I'll be honest with you, it is a fear factor because many women want to just live in a bubble and think it's never going to happen to me. I have no family history. I had no family history at all. And so they think they're at low risk. But the problem now is that no one is exempt from this disease. Breast cancer now, statistics are 1 in 8. And we're predicting that within the next 10 years, it'll be 1 in 4. So the only thing that really, the factor that you need to think about is that you're a woman. Being a woman puts you at risk for breast cancer. And I know men get breast cancer too. I've got lots of advocate friends who are men. But I know I felt like I was pretty immune to it. And the other thing too is many women fear, there are a lot of concern about, well, what if they find something? Is it going to be a false positive? And, they're with mammo print and a lot of new technologies, they are, sort of making the system better, but they still, and young women think they're immune, and that's not true at all. As a matter of fact, the age of breast cancer detection is now going down way into the 30s and 40s. It used to be the high risk group was postmenopausal. 75% of women postmenopausal were in the statistics, but not anymore. And the scary thing too, for which I actually am advocating for more clarity on, is that a lot of women are getting breast cancer either while they're pregnant or while they are lactating and nursing a child. And there finally is some research looking at that. They think it has something to do with women waiting longer to have children, and also the use of birth control pills earlier and earlier. And the big thing is the epidemic of obesity, because if you have a high body mass index, that also puts you at a higher risk for breast cancer. Anything over 25, and particularly for hormone receptor, estrogen receptor breast cancer, because fat cells have the ability to store estrogen. And so that's a concern. But we need to get the word out there that no one is exempt from this disease. And breast cancer is officially now reached epidemic proportions.
Well, this is quite interesting, because I wanted also to ask you, in addition of the previous questions, that it seems to me that we are living like in a paradox. Statistics prove that the breast cancer is one of the most curable forms of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same time, the majority of women are dying because of breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite like a living paradox. And why do you think is that? Because of the stage of epidemic type of cancer, or where this paradox come from? Cultural background, I don't know, financial toxicity, inequality in cancer, access. Why do you think it's this paradox happening?
Well, breast cancer and heart disease are the two biggest killers of women. And I think the rising number of deaths is a reflection of the rising number of cases. So, I mean, if caught early, breast cancer is very survivable. And in fact, there is so many advancements now with immunotherapy that even when the cancer recurs, a woman can have a pretty good quality of life with treatment that is targeted, and what we refer to in the States as precision oncology. We're now able to really find out what fuels particular cancers, which is a huge breakthrough. So not everyone is treated the same way. And we are using less and less toxic treatments and more immunotherapy treatments that now in the States, we consider stage 4 breast cancer, which is breast cancer that has spread to the body. And that's usually when it will be fatal. But we now are looking at it as a chronic disease. I have many friends who have lived 10 years with stage 4 breast cancer. And I just lost a very good friend who I actually traveled to London with to a conference, who lived for 24 years with stage 4 breast cancer. So again, why are the rising numbers there? People are dying because the numbers are rising of women that are getting breast cancer. So those numbers are going to go up. And I can remember when I was a child, I'm 69 years old, that I never heard of anyone in my school, any mother or grandmother that had breast cancer. You just didn't know anyone back then. And so the good thing is that there's more discussion because Susan G. Komen made breast cancer a nationwide issue and brought attention to the fact that we need to do something about the standard treatments. So people now are talking about breast cancer. They didn't used to talk about breast cancer because it was sort of a awkward word to refer to. But now the dialogue is out there that people are comfortable talking about it. We just have to encourage people to actually get screened. And in particular, with our trial, and the FDA is addressing this, we need more diversity in the trial in all trials, because we've learned that if someone in the trial doesn't look like you, you're probably not going to respond to the treatment the way someone else might. And I've got a good friend, Ricky Fairley, who has started a movement called Black Genes Matter. Unfortunately, minority, particularly women of color, have a higher incidence of getting breast cancer and a higher probability of getting triple-negative breast cancer and the most lethal form of triple-negative breast cancer. And we know that the type of breast cancer they get is genetically different from a white woman who has triple-negative breast cancer. So it's also hard to convince women in minority neighborhoods to get screened. And also, I don't know what it's like in Serbia, but they do offer mammogram mobiles that they'll go through different neighborhoods. Yeah. But I was recently lobbying with another a group of other advocates, and the other part of the puzzle that we need to solve is that you might get a free mammogram, but then you need the money to get the follow-up treatment. And so from the premise of what good does it do to screen women who have financial toxicity if they're going to find out they have breast cancer but haven't got the money to actually get treatment? And that's a fear, I think, in that community that needs to be addressed. And we have lobbied Congress. It's state by state now in the U.S. that if a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer through screening, they will pay for follow-up, like a sonogram or a more detailed high-resolution mammogram. So we're sort of getting there, but that's been a big obstacle, is getting these women tested, because they feel like they won't be able to afford the treatment, even if they found out they had the disease.
We talk now about breast cancer. You are also an advocate for ovarian cancer. What are the statistics or the situation on this type of cancer, which is, let's say, more harder to understand it in a way, or to live in a way that emotionally it seems to have a higher impact than other types of cancer?
Well, ovarian cancer is what we call a silent killer because the symptoms normally don't show up until the disease has progressed further and actually metastasized. And the ovarian cancer vaccine was also invented by Dr. Tuohy. And the patent for the breast cancer vaccine and the ovarian cancer vaccine is with a biotech company in California called Anixa Biotech. And we never got the money to test the ovarian vaccine in women. However, through lobbying Congress, there was money set aside at NIH, the National Institute of Health, called the PREVENT program. And a lot of the part of the breast cancer vaccine trial, a lot of time that was taken was, these vaccines are tested on a mouse model. These mice are bred to react just like a woman would. But still, when you get the vaccine, you then need to convert it to human form. And that took several years. So NIH basically is taking Dr. Tuohy's ovarian vaccine mouse model. They're going to reproduce the results in the mouse first to validate his idea. And then they are going to humanize the vaccine. Now, this started in 2020, and during COVID, nothing was done. And so we're about 2 years behind on that. And now with this current situation in the US, where NIH funding is sort of up in the air at the moment. But the ovarian vaccine, I don't know the exact proteins that it attacks because that's part of the confidentiality of the patent. But it's also a targeted vaccine that could be used as a treatment. He also had a monoclonal antibody that was very effective in ovarian cancer, and that's also with Anixa Bioscience. And I forgot one really important thing about the breast cancer trial. So we didn't forget about primary prevention. So we treated the women that have triple negative, but what we did do is we recruited women who were prophylactically getting a double mastectomy because they had the BRCA gene, so that they had already decided on the double mastectomy to reduce their chances of getting the disease. And they volunteered to get the vaccine before the mastectomies and then donate their tissue to ensure that the vaccine would not harm healthy breast tissue. And it didn't harm healthy breast tissue. So again, we've got the challenge, though, of how do you know it will prevent this? With HPV vaccine, it was very easy because it's a virus. But our vaccine is not targeting a virus. It's targeting a protein that is made by only the breast cells and not made by healthy cells, disease cells, I should say, and not healthy cells. So we are estimating, and I hope this is not the case, but we're estimating for primary prevention that the disease never happens. We're probably looking at 10 to 20 years to do proof of concept. So
it's a, let's say, positive outcome. It's an optimistic horizon of that.
Well, and the incidence of breast cancer have drastically increased over the last 20 years. So when you think about it that way, I mean, I know in my lifetime, 20 years evaporates very quickly, but I'm hopeful that I have 3 beautiful granddaughters, and I'm hoping that what I'm doing will make a difference so that they never have to hear those awful words that I heard. You have breast cancer. I am praying and doing all that I can do while I'm alive to make sure that these 2 diseases, which we know are preventable, can be prevented.
We've discussed till now more about challenges in your area of activity, of what you are doing, of what you are trying to do. But what opportunities are, what satisfactions has Judy Fitzgerald doing this? This is also very important. Did you find opportunities within those challenges?
I'm not at all. I didn't ask for this. I always say I was hijacked into this club because it's a club that no one wants to be involved in. But I think the growth that has happened to me in particular, where now I can speak on behalf and I've taken classes and I can educate myself. To me, I always told Dr. Tuohy he was my God incidence because I was kind of at a loss when I finished treatment. And I was really, as I talked in my blogs about the hardest time for a patient is when treatment is over, because during treatment, you are in the hands of your medical team. You're seeing them every 3 months. Even though you're enduring the treatment, you feel kind of safe because you're always being monitored. Well, then when you finish treatment, they say, okay, go live your life. But the problem is you have no idea how, because you're not the same person you were. I call my time BC before cancer and AD after diagnosis. And doing this advocacy work has empowered me to take charge of myself, because one thing you feel when you've got cancer is you lost control. How did this happen to me? I lost control. And the question is, a lot of women used to say, why me? Well, now it's become, why not me? Because it's so prevalent. And so I just feel like if you can, like I used to tell my 5th grade students, if you can make a difference and you have the opportunity to make a difference, then you owe it not only to yourself, but also to the world, because unless we do this advocacy work, none of this progress would have happened.
We have to share the knowledge. We have to share everything in order to overcome this new reality, because it is a new reality that replaces a former reality. So the patients who can adapt to the new reality have a future. And
well, the other thing too is that there didn't used to be cancer advocates. That has come out within the last, is actually credited to the National Breast Cancer Coalition. All of the money for the funding comes out of the Department of Defense research program. And the National Breast Cancer Coalition requires an educated advocate on each of the research team reviews. And so now we have a voice. And basically our job, not only to support research, but also to support patients to say, these are the questions you need to ask. Your doctor is not God, so don't make him that. And you need to get another opinion if you're not happy with what you're being told. And years ago, women just accepted whatever they were told. And now we know that there's a much better outcome for women that take an active role in their treatment and ask questions. Matter of fact, we encourage women to either record their sessions with the doctor or bring someone with them to take notes. And I always recommend, under every circumstance, to get a second opinion, because I have personal experience with that. Because when I sought a second opinion, the tumor that went undetected from my first diagnosis would have been the one that would have killed me. So had I not gone for a second opinion, I would not be here today. So we're so used to thinking that a doctor is not infallible. Don't make him infallible. He's not God.
Judy, since we are approaching the end of interview, I would like to ask you final questions to briefly answer to it. Do you believe that the future is of vaccines in cancer care, or at least vaccines will become maybe the heaviest part of cancer care?
Mm-hmm. Well, sadly, we lost Dr. Tuohy 2 years ago, which is a huge hole in my life and in the cancer research community. But Dr. Tuohy felt that prevention is the cure. And Dr. Tuohy also felt that with given enough time and resources, we could actually find the Achilles heel of each cancer, each type of cancer. And what he was a proponent of is we have a vaccine program for our children, but we have no vaccine program for adults. And these cancers, like breast and ovarian cancers, are adult onset cancers. And so with enough research and enough dedication, he felt, and I believe, that we can conquer these cancers. And we just need to stay the course and stay steady and keep our eyes on primary prevention. So the disease just, he said the current treatment is like letting the cow out of the barn and then going and chasing it. You might not ever catch up. But if you can get it's from the beginning before it starts, because we all make cancer cells every day in our bodies. Our bodies, the cell checkpoint system doesn't go right 100% of the time. And so, but our immune system basically is detecting these cancers. It's when the cancer disguises itself from the immune system. And he felt our immune system is a powerful tool that we don't use enough. And he referred to it as these vaccines would basically just be like software for our immune system, just like you program a computer. You would program your body with these cancer vaccines to say, hey, this guy looks like he's normal, but he's not normal. And hopefully cure these diseases, which I think is doable.
Judy, thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you very much for so many information, very useful for all your work and implication and devotion for women and for the community. Thank you very much, and good luck in your activities further.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for helping to spread this mission that primary prevention of cancer, which I don't know if I'll see in my lifetime, but I hope you will.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to OncoDaily on YouTube. Hit the bell icon to stay updated.